please do stick around for our next speaker, who I'm really, really excited about. Bob Radliff is the Executive Director of the Community Loan Fund of the Capital Region, and he has been Executive Director for 14 years. The Community Loan Fund just celebrated its 25th anniversary last night at the Capitol, so we're really lucky that Bob's staying up late again another night for us. But he's really going to help bring this to a more local focus. He's a lifelong resident of Saratoga County, and he has over 20 years of experience managing nonprofit organizations with community development, social, and economic justice missions. In addition to leading the Community Loan Fund, he has also served as the affordable housing representative for a local bank, now M&T, I think. He was the first executive director of the Albany Community Land Trust. He was a neighborhood planner and a housing development specialist for 2 other community-based organizations. He has a BA in environmental science, received his MBA from the University of Albany, and very special, he was the past recipient of the Capital District Business Review's 40 Under 40 Award. But Bob is personally concerned with housing affordability, community economic development, open space, and really sees how all of those are interrelated and vital to ensuring sustainability. So please welcome Bob Radliff.
And he's mad too. As Amy said, I think the most important thing for me this evening is that I am a lifelong Saratoga County resident and have a lot of experience in a lot of the issues that we're talking about. Peter did a great job laying out the smart growth principles, but I've had an opportunity to watch Saratoga County. I'm going to talk more about Saratoga County than the city, but I've watched it grow and evolve over the years, and it's been a big frustration of mine, as I'm sure with many of you in this room, to see the missed opportunities in all the principles that Peter laid out and all the resources that we know we have. We know we can do, we can do better. So I just wanted to lay out some of the problems that I see, some of the opportunities, and then hopefully throw out a couple possible solutions or helpful solutions. Again, thanks to Peter for laying the smart growth principles out. I'm not going to tell you, you all know that stuff better than I do, what it means, what smart growth means. It has different meanings to all of us, but I think we all get it. I did want to try to define housing affordability because I'm trying to talk about smart growth and some housing issues. So any of you have any definitions that you like to throw out in terms of what you think of when you hear affordable housing? Somebody. Anyway. Our graduates.
Yes. I think it's a diversity of housing opportunities for people. So meeting a diversity of needs.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, in Saratoga, I think we've heard about, it seems like we've stayed away from, in Saratoga County, about talking about low-income housing or affordable housing. We're calling it workforce housing. And there are differences, but I guess in general, I'm talking about all those things: senior housing, affordable housing, low-income housing, workforce housing. To me, there are no code words. Affordability is the issue that we're trying to get at. In generally, the accepted definition is people spending less than 30% of their household income on housing costs. So I think, in terms of Saratoga County, again, I think we've missed a lot of opportunities. I think there is minimal commitment at this point to smart growth. I think, again, there's a lot of lip service being given to it, but we need more people like you to insist that it happens. I think we need to approach it on a countywide basis. Affordable housing is not just a city of Saratoga problem. It's a regional problem. It's a countywide problem. We need to think about things in a more regional way. And think more about the interconnectedness. Again, Peter talked about Albany. The building he's talking about, I work on Orange Street, which runs parallel to Clinton Avenue. So I'm working in probably the lowest income neighborhood in the region, in Arbor Hill, in the Sheridan Hollow neighborhood. But I see and like many of you, I see the interconnectedness. We want healthy urban areas if we want to preserve open space. Because if people are moving out of the city, they're putting pressure on the open space in the farms. So I'm coming at this from an angle that, again, economic development, housing affordability, preservation of open space are all interconnected, and we need to look at it that way. We need to look at it on a regional basis, and it's in all of our best interests to make sure that housing is kept affordable and that we preserve open space. I think the county's economic development policies have been aired way too much on sprawl, suburban office parks, big box stores, Luther Forest Technology Campus, which is now evolved in advanced micro. I don't need to get into the details about that, but the Global Foundries project, I fought hard against it. Many of you may have done the same thing. I don't think it's a sustainable effort, and I think it undermines smart growth. I mean, we could talk all we want about some of the smaller things that we're all doing in our lives for smart growth. That was a major decision that was made. It was made by a very small group of people. I think we're going to grow. We're going to learn to regret that. It's kind of this growth at any cost mentality. It was called the Super Bowl of economic development by one of the promoters during all the planning hearings. I mean, it's just big. It's got to be good. And I guess I just disagree with that. I feel like in many ways they're influencing us. They're saying they want a second water line. We're not controlling the development. They're controlling us. We're all bending over backwards of resources in other ways to try to make this one business work. And I think there's plenty of alternatives that we can talk about. Environmentally, again, we talked about Harriman Campus, places in Schenectady, other places in the capital region, brownfields that could have been looked at much more seriously. They weren't. This was not a regional decision. It was not what was best for the region where that place was located. We're bringing infrastructure to a place where none existed before instead of reinvesting in our existing infrastructure, our urban cores. There's all kinds of other environmental issues, and again, we're missing opportunities to address brownfield issues and other things. We're paying more than $1 million per job. I think it sends a message to locally owned small businesses and other alternative economic development strategies that we don't have resources for you, but we do for this. And again, I just think there's missed opportunities. In terms of housing affordability, land, Saratoga County is blessed. I've been here. I love being a Saratoga County resident. It's beautiful between the city of Saratoga, its suburbs, its rural areas, its open space. People want to be here. Land values are higher than in the rest of the region. So we need to be concerned about gentrification and enforcing low-income people out, especially as speculation is going to increase with the kind of development that's going on right now. Property taxes are going to affect affordability as well. I'm sure you're familiar with the developers, the owners of that place are fighting their tax assessment. We're all going to have more infrastructure to maintain. We're going to have more kids. We're going to have more schools. There's going to be more services that need to be provided, and it's going to put a lot of pressure on us. So rental opportunities for affordable rental opportunities and affordable home ownership opportunities, and I think we're going to see a lot more pressure. There's a report done by the Center for Women in Government on Austin, Texas, that was done a few years ago about their experience with high tech and lessons learned, or something the report was called. I can give you a reference to that if you're interested, but I think the Center for Women in Government has it on their website. They learned some valuable lessons that I don't think we're taking to heart in terms of preparing for these pressures on land and making housing less affordable, other disparities that increased when that area experienced a similar kind of boom. So, there's rental issues, of course, in the city of Saratoga and elsewhere. Home ownership as well. That we got lots of mobile homes. I believe Saratoga County is one of the largest, if not the largest, concentration of mobile homes, and we're facing some real issues. So, in terms of some of these impacts, again, I'm kind of repeating myself, but this is just consuming land. The Capital District Regional Planning Commission has put together several growth scenarios that I think we all ought to pay attention to in terms of applying smart growth principles. Are we going to control where development happens? Are we going to let it happen and respond? We have small cities and villages in the county of Saratoga that could use attention, Mechanicville, Schuylerville, and I'd like to see the county doing a much better job to helping them out with the housing affordability issues and other issues. So, in summary of the problems, I told you I just needed to vent for a while, but again, I think smart growth, it's getting a lot of lip service, but I think we really need to do a better job of applying these principles consistently. There's a lot of silos, if you will, and disconnect right now, which is where I want to head now, between people interested in housing affordability, people interested in open space and preservation. How can we get those constituents, those people of mutual interest together? There's a disconnect. We need to do that. We need to kind of get rid of this economic development trumps all mentality. There's minimal community control in a lot of these decisions. It's driven by politics in a large way, and we need to change that and not let it dominate the open space. There's a green infrastructure plan in place on a countywide level, which of course is a great thing, but a lot more resources need to be put in that. And I think the good news in terms of housing affordability is I think there's a lot to be learned about how that green infrastructure on a countywide basis came about. How can we apply some of those same things to housing affordability and come up with a countywide long-term plan to make sure we're preserving open space with adequate resources and housing affordability with adequate resources. And again, I think we have some ideas to share that. So I'll skip over some of this stuff. So in terms of housing affordability, there are some good things happening. As you know, there's a wealth of nonprofit groups working on affordable housing issues. I think there's lots of opportunities to get them together and work more closely together. Lots of smart, talented people, including many in this room. Lots of good public sector people, planners, former planners. Just a lot of potential to do a lot of good things. Same with the smart growth and long-term planning. There's tons of groups. I started listing them. I'm sure you could add to this list. As you know, there's a wealth of good people and good groups in this county wanting to make these things happen. So, if you had $1.2 billion, $1.3 billion, what would you do with it? And do you think we could, any problems you could solve with that?
Is that the amount that's available for, what's the one?
That's a reference to the public subsidies going into the Luther Forest Tech campus and Global Foundries. The public subsidies, the public money,
Actually, it's up to 1.6.
Thank you. Anyway, I think, some of these problems we could solve. If we had these kind of resources to make housing affordable, to preserve open space. So that's, we got to keep that in mind. That just keeps bringing these things back into perspective. A lot of people tell us there's no money for that. Where are you going to find the money for that? Well, they found the money for that. There are resources, and we can make these things happen. So the opportunities that I see, again, people, lots of great people here, real opportunity to kind of blend these interests and balance these interests. We need a sustainable economy in order to have a sustainable environment. And I think there's a real opportunity to organize people, try to create a stock of permanently affordable housing, permanently preserve some open space, and have a little more locally controlled economy. So one of my organization that I work for, the Community Loan Fund of the Capital Region, spends a lot of time on what we call community economic development issues. So working on economic development, but putting the community first. Working on having a small, locally owned business sector that's thriving, working with small farms, agriculture, other retail, small businesses. If we took that $1.2 billion, $1.6 billion, we could have given out a $1 million grant. If you look at the $1 million per job, we could have given out a $1 million grant to 1,000 small, locally owned businesses.